Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I want to say something that might sound harsh, maybe even offensive at first, but hear me out. Stop being nice to everyone. Yes, I said it. Stop being nice to everyone. Not because I'm advocating cruelty or selfishness, but because constantly trying to please everyone is slowly killing your authenticity, your self-worth, and your peace. 1. Being nice isn't the same as being kind. We confuse nice with kind. Being kind comes from strength. It's about empathy and respect, but being nice, especially to everyone all the time, is often a survival tactic. We smile when we don't feel like it. We agree when we disagree. We say it's fine when it's not fine. That's not kindness. That's fear of rejection dressed up as politeness. 2. People pleasing destroys self-identity. Every time you suppress your own voice to avoid conflict or gain approval, you lose a piece of yourself. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How often have you smiled while silently screaming inside? People pleasing might keep the peace on the outside, but it creates chaos within. And the worst part, you start forgetting who you are. 3. No is a complete sentence. Let me give you a powerful truth. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. Saying no doesn't make you mean. It makes you clear. It makes you intentional. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates, and you decide who gets access. 4. You can't earn respect by avoiding conflict. Some of us were taught that avoiding conflict makes us good people. But avoiding conflict doesn't bring peace, it brings resentment. If you never stand up for yourself, people don't see you as nice. They see you as easy to use. Respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being firm, from having standards, from speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. 5. Authenticity attracts the right people. Here's the beautiful part. When you stop faking niceness, the people who only like the performance will leave, and that's okay. Because the people who truly value you for you will stay, and new ones will come. When you're authentic, you're magnetic. You stop chasing approval and start attracting alignment. 6. Your energy is a resource. Protect it. You are not a limitless supply of kindness. You are a human being with limits. Your time, your attention, your emotional labor. These are resources. Stop spending them on people who don't appreciate them or situations that don't deserve them. The most powerful thing you can do for your growth is this. Be kind. Be honest, but stop being nice to everyone. Closing call to action. So today, I challenge you. Stop being the version of yourself everyone else wants. Start being the version of yourself you need. Be bold enough to say no. Be strong enough to stand alone when necessary. And be free enough to stop being nice and start being real. Thank you. Let me tell you something I wish more people heard earlier in life. Being nice and being kind are not the same thing. We throw those words around like they mean the same thing, but they don't, and getting that confused, that's where a lot of pain starts. Being kind is powerful, it's grounded, it's conscious, it comes from a place of empathy and inner strength. When you're kind, you're acting from your values. You're considerate, but you're also honest. You care about people, but you don't betray yourself in the process. Being nice, on the other hand, is often just a mask. It's what we do when we want to be liked, not when we want to be real. It's smiling when we're tired, nodding when we disagree, saying sure when we mean absolutely not. And why do we do it? Because we're scared. We're scared of conflict, of judgment, of not being accepted. We think being nice is the key to connection, but more often, it's the fast track to resentment. You think you're making things easier for everyone, but really, you're just making it harder for yourself. You're training people to expect your silence, your compliance, your emotional availability, even when you're exhausted. You're teaching them that your needs come last, and it's not just psychological, it's physical. When you suppress what you feel just to keep the peace, your body knows, your nervous system knows, that constant tension of trying to be liked. It keeps you in a low-grade stress state all the time. And over time, it wears you down, it's not sustainable, so instead of forcing yourself to be nice, what if you aim to be clear? What if, instead of pretending to be okay, you allowed yourself to be honest, calmly, compassionately, but truthfully? That's what builds real connection. That's what makes you trustworthy, not the fake smile, not the constant yes, but the grounded, honest presence of someone who respects themselves and others enough to show up real. The truth is, people don't connect with perfection, they connect with honesty, and that starts the moment you stop performing and start showing up. Be kind, be real, but stop being nice to everyone. There's something subtle but incredibly dangerous about being too focused on making others happy. At first, it feels harmless, even generous. You tell yourself you're just being supportive, being thoughtful, being helpful. But if you do it often enough, over time, something starts to happen. You begin to lose track of what you actually want. When you're constantly adjusting yourself to meet everyone else's expectations, you stop asking a very important question: what matters to me? That question gets buried under layers of approval, seeking behavior, and slowly, piece by piece, your identity starts to dissolve. It happens quietly. You don't wake up one morning and say, "I'm going to lose myself today." No, it's gradual. You say yes when you mean no. You tolerate things that go against your values. You bite your tongue because you don't want to upset anyone, and each time it feels small, insignificant, but those small moments stack up. And eventually, you look in the mirror and realize you don't really know who's looking back. We're not just talking about preferences here. This is deeper than choosing what movie to watch or where to go for dinner. This is about your sense of self. When you habitually put everyone else's comfort ahead of your own truth, you lose access to your own inner compass. And when you do that long enough, you start to question your instincts. You second guess your feelings. You start needing permission to be who you are. And here's the real cost. People start to know the version of you that performs, not the version that lives. You're liked, maybe even admired, but not seen. Not deeply, because you've hidden the parts of you that matter most. And if you're not being seen, you're not truly connected. You're just playing a role. So what's the way back? It's not dramatic. It's actually quite simple. You start by listening to yourself. You get honest about what you feel, what you need, what you value. And then you protect those things even if it ruffles a few feathers, even if someone doesn't approve. Because the moment you choose your truth over their comfort, that's the moment you start coming home to yourself. One of the most powerful things you can ever learn in life is that no is a complete sentence. That's it. No long explanation, no apology, no softening the edges to make it more palatable for the other person. Just no, and for a lot of people, that's terrifying. We're taught from a young age that saying no makes us selfish, difficult, or ungrateful. So we end up over-explaining, over-apologizing, or worse. We say yes when we know deep down we don't mean it. And every time we do that, we're not just giving away our time or our energy. We're giving away our boundaries. We're handing over control of our lives in exchange for short-term approval. But here's the thing, your boundaries are not up for negotiation. They are not rude. They are not dramatic. They are necessary. Saying no doesn't make you cold. It doesn't mean you're shutting people out. It means you're choosing to show up in your life in a way that's honest and sustainable. Because if you keep saying yes to things that drain you, you're eventually going to run on empty. And when you're running on empty, you have nothing left to give. Not to your work, not to your relationships, and definitely not to yourself. Some people will get uncomfortable when you start setting boundaries, especially if they benefited from you not having any. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. What's your responsibility is protecting your peace, because without peace, you can't think clearly, you can't grow, you can't lead, you can't even rest. And you know what else? Saying no teaches people how to treat you. It sets a tone. It says, I know what I need, I value my time, and I'm not afraid to protect it. That's not weakness, that's power. That's self-respect. And ironically, the more clearly you say no, the more meaningful your yes becomes. When you agree to something, people know it's real. They know it's not coming from guilt or pressure, it's coming from choice. So if you've been stretching yourself thin, trying to be everywhere for everyone, stop. Give yourself permission to say no. No reason, no excuse, just no. A lot of people believe that if they just avoid conflict, if they stay agreeable, if they go along with what everyone else wants, then everything will be okay. That keeping the peace means keeping the connection. But the truth is, Constantly avoiding conflict doesn't bring people closer. It just pushes you further away from yourself. When you never speak up, when you silence your opinions, when you let things slide just to keep things smooth, you might maintain surface level harmony, but underneath you're building tension. Resentment grows in silence. And the longer you let it sit there, the more damage it does not just to your relationships, but to your own sense of self-worth. You can't earn genuine respect by always staying quiet. You can't be deeply valued if you're constantly minimizing yourself just to make sure no one else feels uncomfortable. At some point, people start to assume that you don't have a point of view, or worse, that you're okay being taken for granted. And not because they're cruel, but because that's the role you've trained them to expect from you. Respect is not about being liked. It's about being real. It's about being consistent with your values, even if that makes certain moments uncomfortable. Conflict isn't something to run from. In many cases, it's actually a signal that you're finally being honest, that you're showing up, that you're not shrinking anymore just to fit someone else's expectations. And it's not about being aggressive, it's about being clear. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You just have to stop lowering your standards. When you communicate what's true for you, calmly and directly, it sends a message. I know who I am, and I respect myself enough to take up space. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying so hard to be liked, people actually start taking you more seriously. They begin to respect your boundaries, they trust your words, and most importantly, you begin to trust yourself, because you're finally standing for something. So if you've been keeping quiet just to avoid shaking the table, maybe it's time to flip the whole thing over. Say what you mean, stand where you are. You don't owe the world your silence. There's something really powerful that happens when you stop performing for approval and start showing up as your real self. When you drop the mask, when you stop being overly agreeable, overly accommodating, overly nice, something shifts. You begin to attract people who see you for who you truly are, not for the version of you they wish you were. See, when you're always trying to be likable, you end up building connections on shaky ground. Those relationships depend on you staying in character, on you continuing to say yes, continuing to be available, continuing to hide parts of yourself that might cause tension or pushback. And even when those relationships look good from the outside, deep down they feel empty, because you know they're not based on truth, they're based on performance. But when you choose authenticity, when you speak your truth, when you set boundaries and let people see the unpolished version of you, that's when something real begins. Yes, it can be uncomfortable. Yes, some people might pull away. That's natural, because when you stop shrinking, people who are only drawn to your smallness won't know what to do with your wholeness, and that's okay, let them go, because the people who remain, the ones who respect your boundaries, your truth, your presence, those are your people. That's your actual circle, and what you'll notice is that those connections take less effort. You're not walking on eggshells or overthinking every word. You're not filtering your personality through a lens of approval. You just show up, and that's enough, and that energy, that peace of mind that comes from being able to be fully yourself without constant self-monitoring, that's where you start to thrive, that's where real confidence is built. Not from being liked by everyone, but from being deeply seen by a few, and being okay with the rest walking away. You don't need to be universally accepted. You need to be authentically aligned. And that only happens when you stop being nice for the sake of approval and start being honest for the sake of integrity. Your energy is not infinite. Your time, your focus, your emotional bandwidth, they're all limited. And yet, so many people treat their energy like it's endlessly available, pouring it into situations and people that give nothing back, all in the name of being nice, all in the name of not letting anyone down. But here's the truth. If you're constantly running on empty because you're trying to be everything to everyone, you're going to break. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to something that could have restored you. Every time you give your time to someone who doesn't value it, you're taking it away from someone who would have, and eventually that imbalance catches up with you. You start to feel tired all the time, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. You become resentful, not because you're doing too much, but because deep down, you know it's not being received with the same care you're giving. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's essential. You are responsible for managing your capacity, not just to be productive, but to be well. Because when you're constantly overextending, even good things start to feel heavy. Even people you love begin to feel like obligations instead of connections. That's not fair to them, and it's definitely not fair to you. You don't have to explain why you're unavailable. You don't have to apologize for needing space. You don't owe everyone unlimited access to your time, your attention, or your emotions. If you treat your energy like it's valuable, other people will start to do the same, and if they don't, then maybe they were only around for what they could take, not for who you really are. Start paying attention to what drains you and what restores you. Protect the things that keep you grounded, keep you inspired, keep you whole, because when your energy is protected, you think more clearly, you feel more present, and you show up in your life, not depleted, but intentional. You're not here to be endlessly available, you're here to be fully alive, and that starts with knowing where your energy goes, and choosing to keep it sacred,